So apparently Nintendo's getting sued, apparently. Nintendo's being sued and they deserve it.
Nintendo is finally going to get what they absolutely deserve. You see, I have had a big bone to pick with Nintendo recently, especially for their switch to EULA, where it turns out that the new EULA is going to prevent users from filing class action lawsuits against them.
That's crazy.
And that has been a major factor for me in general. On top of that, Nintendo has completely began to overreach and overextend massive control over their Switch 2 hardware, which is also a major issue for me as well.
Yeah, you don't own anything. You guys don't own anything. They learned that from Ubisoft, you know?
Completely going against right to repair or even proper ownership of their consoles that you've already paid for and you've already owned is something I truly just cannot get behind. And the fact that it is continually being defended over and over again by basically Nintendrones or 40-plus-year-old men who want to go ahead and defend this company simply because of nostalgia reasons really is the more insane part of all of this.
That's the craziest thing about it, to hear people actually defending this, you know? Like, just defending this behavior. If buying isn't owning, then pirating isn't stealing. That's true. That is very true.
Because of this massive oversight of the fact that no one is pushing back against Nintendo directly and the fanboys do whatever they can to defend this company, Nintendo has been overreaching excessively, banning people who use things like the MIG switch cart, depending upon how they determine it, can brick that console directly and then no longer provide internet access for that console, thereby rendering it completely useless in today's modern age. On top of that, it turns out that people who had their consoles bricked by Nintendo still have their accounts active in their system, but the console is effectively bricked, meaning that those consoles are then being returned to places like GameStop and other major retailers, then being resold to other customers unknowingly and unsuspectingly, getting home and realizing, oh, the used Switch 2 that I bought, that's also a brick. It's becoming even more and more.
Oh, so you're telling me, so people who got their Nintendo brick, they just bring it back to the store, get a refund, and then somebody else buys it? Oh, man, bro. Oh, my. Wow, that's funny. I wonder how many Nintendo Switches got returned back. I'd be curious, like how many like Nintendo Switch 2s got bricked and then returned and then someone else bought it, you know? It's just another Switch that can't run at least Doom Eternal, a clunky optimization, and only for casuals, not for me.
Apparent that Nintendo never thought of any of these things through and was trying to take a jackhammer towards a nail to try and solve a problem. Instead of being surgical and direct about it, they decided to just ban everyone who didn't fit their narrative. And it gets even better because apparently now, if you don't have a username that they don't like either, they can ban you for that too.
What?
Because a user went around and had their Switch 2 permanently banned because a family member named their account Twink Link.
Wow, they can ban you for your like username as well? Holy damn. Jesus Christ, you really can't do anything on the Nintendo ecosystem, huh? God. Okay, all right then, all right. That's crazy. That's fucking crazy to hear that, dude.
That's actually a really good name. I'm not even angry at that. I think
Twink Link.
Okay, that's actually really good. I don't know why Nintendo would ban that, but that is honestly hilarious in every way. It couldn't be any better. But besides the entire overreach of Nintendo, basically making their EULA to where you can't sue them via class action lawsuit, banning accounts because of names, banning Switch consoles because of the MIG switch and their massive fear of piracy. Oh, let's not forget them completely going around and destroying emulation as a preservation tactic in the future as well, simply because they refuse to put their games onto different platforms and lock them behind that piece of hardware, even though there is a massive market of PC gamers that would be ready, willing, and able to buy their games at a better performance standard just by simply putting their games onto that platform.
Imagine if they put Nintendo games on PC, bro, that would be crazy. They would generate so much revenue if they actually put those games on PC, but they don't want to because they don't want their games to be pirated. That's literally the only reason why, you know? It's like, bro, it's not that fucking serious, you know? I would actually buy some of the Pokemon games on Steam and like, you know, some of the Zelda games and stuff like that. The older ones anyways. I don't like any of the newer ones. I played Breath of the Wild, the first one. It was enjoyable. It was all right. But the second one was kind of like, it's the same shit, but you can go horizontal, up and down. Dude, there's like an attic, and then there's a basement. You know, that's all they did. That's all they basically did with the game itself. Oh, and they made the weapon deterioration even worse. I'm just kind of like, okay, never mind. I don't want to play this. So, and they put Fortnite in it too as well. So, I can't for Ocarina of Time on PC. I know with like updated controls and everything like that, it'd be great. The thing is, why should they kill Nintendo Wii U if you know people want to play your games? What do you mean? What do you mean? People would love to play, you know. Actually, to be honest, they would have to like transfer some of their Wii U games onto the PC, but have to make it a little bit more different for PC.
But all of that aside, it turns out that the one place going around that could potentially provide a recourse of what's actually happening in this space and give Nintendo their just possible desserts is going to be Brazil. Bom dia! Brazil mentioned, baby! Let's go! Honestly, I am very excited about this because Nintendo is a company that has been using their legal muscle far too often with far too
Wait, is the
great
whole
extent
entire country of Brazil gonna literally like say fuck you, Nintendo?
massive ramifications.
That would be crazy if that's how it is.
Consumer in the industry for far too long. It's honestly been so bad with Nintendo's legal actions that people are saying it is now morally and ethically correct to pirate Nintendo video games. And a perfect example of Nintendo's excessive legal overreach was, of course, in the Palworld lawsuits, trying to copyright claim Palworld for being able to throw a ball and capture a creature, or even use a creature to fly in the actual world, even though those patents would completely fly in the face against every other video game that is being put out nowadays, especially MMO games or anything else in that aspect. Nintendo cannot sit there and say, this is mine, that's mine.
Yeah, fuck Nintendo, bro.
Everybody be like,
honestly, if you actually defend Nintendo, you can literally just, you know, what's that one saying or so? What's that one saying? You could build 100 bridges, something like that, or whatever. I forgot the saying was, or you can suck many dicks or something like that. You're a dick sucker. Something like that. I forgot what it was.
Them Nintendo ninjas, they're gonna get you, bro. That kind of behavior is exactly what lets Nintendo go around and do what they want to do and bully the gaming industry, when in reality, they shouldn't be able to make those kinds of patents at all. We're still seeing the ramifications of what Warner Brothers did with the entire Nemesis system.
Fuck Warner Brothers, bro. They literally fucking patent that stupid Nemesis system and nobody else gets the chance to use it because that's such a revolutionary mechanic, dude. Fuck off, dude. They're not even doing anything with it. That's what makes me pissed off about it the most. You can build 100 bridges, but the moment you suck one dick, you're not a bridge builder. You're a dick sucker. Ah, there you go. That's the word. Yep, that's the saying.
Where that's still filed and still put away, and nobody else can use that either, simply because they decided that nobody else would. But it looks like I said before, that Brazil is going to take a stand against this. Because according to an article by Dexerto, Nintendo is facing legal action over the ability to, quote, brick switch to consoles whenever they want. Regulators in Brazil have called the clause abusive under Brazilian law.
Oh!
And you know what? I agree with them. I feel like that is absolutely 100% abusive. If Nintendo wanted to go ahead and do something to provide an action against your account, that is one thing. We've seen that happen before. But to literally go around and brick systems that people have purchased simply because of the most innocuous things possible, whether or not they're using a...
What's the Nemesis mechanic? I'll show it to you later.
MIG switch for piracy.
I'll explain to you with the video. It's an in-depth thing that we have to talk about after the video.
Be able to make a backup of that game, regardless of whether Nintendo wants you to do that or not. It is your physical product. You should have precedence and ownership over that physical product. There shouldn't be any more tethers tied to you once you provided that transaction and given them the money and they given you the product.
After many years,
they don't get to pick and choose what you do with it afterwards. That's a big thing. You should learn that process. It's called ownership. If that's the case and it doesn't matter, then you shouldn't give them any money for the product in the first place. But hey, tangent aside. I really hope that this lawsuit, in fact, totally catches wind and gets even bigger with the fact that the possibility of getting the EU involved as well.
That would be the most craziest thing to see that.
Nintendo cannot do whatever they want to do simply because people are terrified of those lawsuits. And all this could have been easily avoided if Nintendo would simply just be just a little bit pro-consumer. I'm not asking for them to do a whole...
The only thing that can literally destroy Nintendo is literally a lawsuit of an entire country. They have money to burn. All right? Nintendo may have a lot of money, but there's a difference between a business, one small little business, against an entire country's funding, you know?
180 and be a Valve. I'm just saying, just a little bit, you guys, right? You could have had everything, but you chose to do the actual opposite and go way too far to one end, swinging the pendulum in the total opposite direction in your favor.
True.
But let's see what the article.
Well, they're already
said
burning their money through Power World.
There. Brazil's consumer watchdog is challenging Nintendo over EULA terms that allow the company to ban consoles from online services. In a June 25th press release, Procon SP, the Sao Paulo branch of Brazil's Consumer Protection and Defense Program, requested changes to Nintendo's end-user license agreement, calling certain clauses abusive under Brazilian law.
Wow.
And honestly, they're exactly correct. One of the big factors that I have a big problem with on Nintendo's EULA is that it's incredibly restrictive and does fly in the face of what I would consider to be right to repair. My Steam Deck is a great example. I can buy the parts from iFixit and choose to go ahead and replace whatever part I'd like on my own.
Oh, really?
Without the necessity or need to go ahead and contact Valve to get permission to do so, or to send that device back into them directly to have that done. I can do it on my own time. That's a risk that I'm willing to take, but that doesn't mean that Valve can turn around and brick my Steam Deck, and that doesn't mean that simply because I change the thumbsticks or change the SSD inside of the Steam Deck, then Valve can choose to go through and brick my Steam Deck, or even say, hey, I want to put Windows on my Steam Deck. They're going to brick that device as well. See, that's what I don't want to happen. I don't want to have companies have massive control over the devices that I've already purchased simply because we are living in the age of the Internet of Things.
Yeah, you should be able to own it. If you bought a physical, like, hardware, you know, you should be able to do whatever you want with it. It's just plain and simple, in fact, you know. People who say, like, no, you shouldn't be able to, you're an idiot. You're just an idiot, period. So... But people still want to switch because some people couldn't afford it, or it's only a company that makes casual games.
We're at a point right now where we don't even own video games, let alone now getting to the point where we don't even actually own hardware. Because the amount of control that companies and corporations are trying to exert onto you, the customer and consumer, while also at the same time asking for more money from you, is really ridiculous. If you're going to exert that much control, then at least the customer should pay less overall.
That's true.
Let's continue in the article.
Actually, that's true.
The main concern is Nintendo's ability to permanently restrict access to services like the eShop and online play if they believe someone has violated its terms, including by using unauthorized accessories or pirated software. This is also known as bricking. Any bricked console receives a 2124-4508 error code and lose total access to online. The console still works offline, but has already resulted in fans unknowingly buying affected secondhand consoles. And like we talked about before in the previous part of the video, where customers are going around and buying secondhand Switches, they're getting them completely bricked because there's no way of testing whether or not that console has been bricked in the first place when it's being sold back to GameStop or being returned back to a store or anything along that nature.
But don't like the stores usually check the device or check any electronic stuff? I guess not the Nintendo. I guess not the Nintendo Switch, I guess, you know? So there's, okay, are you telling me like there's literally like no way for like, for like if they received a bricked console, they can't like ship it back to Nintendo and then get it shipped back to them to unbrick it? Like it's completely bricked? Like you can't even unbrick it? There used to be jobs at GameStop just to test used consoles. That's true. I remember that. I actually do remember that. It would cost too much money. I guess so. I guess. Sure. Fuck. Even though they're charging like $500 for that thing, you know?
And you can bet your bottom
dollar. Yeah,
dollar.
Nintendo does hate secondhand market. They do, because they don't get any of the money. That's why.
the person working behind the counter is not going to take the time to be like, did you use a MIG switch on this? Did you get this console bricked? Like, what's going on here? And use that directly. Nintendo's overreaching, overarching, overexertion of them trying to use the EULA to control the actual device and ownership of these devices is really just the problem in general. If they kept a basic hands-off approach and decided, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. They're going to buy the fucking thing anyways, like they already have. Apparently 5 million units have already been sold within like the first month, which is absolutely insane, by the way.
Imagine.
Then no one would be making this kind of content. Hell, I would have bought it.
They probably would, actually. They probably would charge you.
It would have been hunky-dory. There wouldn't have been any problems. But no, they didn't want to go ahead and squeeze out every single dollar they possibly could, going around and charging you $80 for video games. Yep. $500 for the console.
Yep.
And after yesterday's video about how much greed they poured out consistently by removing their things from Amazon, as well as just restricting who can buy what from where, you can see that Nintendo is being literally led by Bowser himself. No, I'm not kidding. The guy who's running Nintendo right now, his name is also Bowser. And it's just, it really can't be more poetic than that, honestly. And every single gold coin that Bowser wants to pull from your wallet, he's going to attempt to do so. But the article continues by saying this. Procon SP says that canceling subscriptions or services without explanation violates consumer protection rules. Nintendo has no formal legal presence in Brazil, forcing the agency to contact the company's U.S. headquarters just to open talks.
Really?
Nintendo has appointed a local law firm to handle the matter, but only for this specific case. The existence of a representation in Brazil should be one of the criteria for purchasing decisions, said Alvaro Camilo, Director of Service and Guidance at Procon SP. Whether Nintendo agrees to change its policies remains unclear. The company has 20 days to respond to Procon SP's request.
Shit.
And a lot of things were just divulged right there in that little bit of paragraph, and we can go over that real quick. You see, it turns out Nintendo doesn't even have representation in Brazil for legal matters, so clearly they don't give a they really just do not care. They're going around and being like, we're going to do whatever we want, whenever we want, because one, we're a Japanese station company. Two, we're just going to go ahead and just decide what we're going to do with our devices, even though you've already purchased them. And three, if you want to go ahead and get in contact with us, we're just going to ignore you anyways. The hubris, the insanity, and the giant fact that Nintendo's giving a massive middle finger for anyone trying to go ahead and have some semblance of right to ownership or even right to repair of their own devices really is concerning to me. And the fact that other companies will also see this as a precedent to say like, hey, look, Nintendo's doing it. We can do it too, I bet. And they'll just go ahead and swallow it down like they always tend to do. And that's the problem I have with all of this. I am actually very interested to see which local law firm in the US is going to handle the matter and how they're going to approach this. Because it turns out that if Brazil does in fact win this over, this could set a precedent for other nations to do so as well. Or even the EU
dude,
to then
that
go
would
ahead
be
and force Nintendo to
crazy
make
if
changes
it
to their
is.
EULA, or even go through and make changes directly to how they go ahead and restrict usage of their consoles directly. I'm going to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of government overreach or government oversight, a lot of the things that I like. I don't want to get political. That's not my jam. The difference, though, is at the moment in time, we are seeing corporations and companies run roughshod and wild over every single person simply because they want to be able to control the product after the trade transaction has already been completed. If my Switch gets bricked, I should get my money back from Nintendo. It shouldn't be that they get to keep my money, break my console, control my usage, and decide what I can and cannot name myself, or what I can and cannot do on the product that I already purchased or the service that I already paid for. If they want to ban people from the service, that's one thing. Fine, I get it. Make a new profile, make a new account, whatever. But banning the actual console and bricking the literal device to have it no longer be usable and then have it function against the next person wanting to go ahead and get their hands on a Switch 2 thinking they got themselves a deal is a massive concern and issue. I have a feeling anyone trying to buy a secondhand Switch may have a worse time overall because they're going to be the ones getting screwed in the long run. Going through and having a 50-50 shot of whether or not that Switch 2 is an effectively bricked console because their previous owner wanted to go ahead and either use a MIG switch to back up their games and got banned, or they had a screen name like Twink Link. I kind of like that name. I think I'm going to make that my Steam name. I'm just saying, that's a really good name. Having Nintendo have less control over the product and device that you purchased is a good thing overall. If your Switch 2 breaks, you're not left out in the cold. You can go ahead and repair that device without getting banned or bricked. If you went ahead and...
That's crazy that you can't even repair your own device. And if you try to repair your own device, they ban you or they brick the console itself. I don't know how the Nintendo fanboys are literally defending this, to be honest. That literally is undefensible.
And decided to buy a used Switch 2 because the one you had basically just died, you couldn't repair it, and you wanted to spend less money on it, you wouldn't have to worry about getting a potential bricked Switch 2 as well, and not have to worry about losing even more money on top of that. I don't understand why people have this really weird obsession with only buying directly from Nintendo or only trying to defend this company and corporation on a consistent basis entirely. None of that honestly makes any sense. You should have every opportunity that you can to have a better experience for yourself as a consumer rather than kowtowing, bending over, and putting Belladonna to shame instead of just going through and saying, look, I need to do what's best for me as a consumer.
Because they like sucking dick, man. That's the reason why. These people who love to defend their plastic boxes love to suck the company's dick, you know? That's just how it is, you know?
Than what the company thinks is best for them. But of course, there's always one in the crowd, and here's a look. Jordium Z 2002 said this: they'll fail because Nintendo isn't bricking people's consoles. That's misinformation. They're just revoking people's rights to use online services when they break TOS. Jordan, I want to make it very incredibly clear.
Right.
You cannot use a device to its full capacity if you do not have online internet access. If you cannot access the eShop, you are having a massive restriction on your console. If you cannot log into the actual device and you get an error because the console is bricked, regardless of whatever account you have to set up your account in the first place, that is a massive brick as well. They are literally bricking consoles specifically.
Man, dude, these Nintendo people sure love to fucking sniff up that copium real hard.
Especially if
the
you
copium must be
your
hard.
account from that brick Switch 2 and then reattach it to another Switch. Thereby, it is unable to actually pair a new account to that Switch, and people are selling those back to people. Effectively, they're selling back bricks. But your insane defense of this company and corporation truly knows no bounds. We are again in the Internet of Things, and the age of the Internet is seeping into everything. No, I don't need the Internet for my hair dryer. No, I don't need it for my toothbrush.
Yep.
Stop it.
The
Get
copium
out.
is
I'm an
is
old
real.
man. I will yell at this cloud all day long. This is going way too far. And again, it's honestly easier for Nintendo to simply
I had
say,
a few people in my comment sections who were like defending Nintendo, so there were actually people in my comment section really defending Nintendo. I'm like, I didn't answer to them because I'm like, whatever, man. If you want that, you wanna keep sucking Nintendo's dick, hey, be my guest, you know? I'm not gonna argue with you.
hey, we're just going to ban your account from online services instead of trying to ban the actual device itself. But you know what?
Yep.
When I think about it even further, it's actually more malicious of what Nintendo is in fact doing. They're not just going ahead and suspending your account. They're not shutting down your account. What they're doing is they're sending an error code, breaking your Switch directly so your console no longer functions online, rather than your account no longer functioning online. There's a big difference. You see, Nintendo could simply just shut down your account, keep your Switch 2 active, and you can just make a new account. Not even have to worry, and then you're fine from there. Instead, they're breaking the console from getting online access, which means that for you to actually go ahead and access the online, your account is still active. They'll make you buy an entirely brand new Switch 2 instead, which costs you $500. So what they're doing is, if they don't like anything that falls under their EULA, or if they just have a bad day to piss you off, they're instead going to go ahead and just lock you out of $500 from your device, make you buy a whole nother $500 device, and just put your account there as well. That's even worse. That's even just worse than making an entirely new account, because accounts are free to make, but the console costs $500. I really hope things go in the wrong way for Nintendo and Brazil goes ahead and takes them to the cleaners, because this would be the best course of action
This
overall.
would be.
And you know
This
they're
would
going
be
to
probably
saying,
be
like,
pretty good
oh,
to
Nintendo's
watch.
going to win. They're going to pull out their ninjas. They're going to pull out their lawyers. It's going to be fine. And that would be, in fact, the worst case scenario, because that could set a
Hey
precedent.
man, Brazil got Brazilian Miku, bro. Brazilian Miku can smack the shit out of Nintendo over there.
for other future devices and consoles for consumers moving forward, eroding right to repair, eroding actual physical ownership, eroding the fact that you don't own your games anymore by giving you digital game key cards. Everything Nintendo is doing is flying directly in the face of a pro-consumer company and doing nothing more than providing you with less product, less ownership, and less control over the products that you purchased, even though the transaction has already been completed directly with that company. And if this doesn't stop in some way, or Nintendo doesn't face repercussions in some way, it's going to spread to everyone else. Like I've talked about before, imagine if I downloaded a different version of drivers on my AMD GPU, and then AMD decided to brick my GPU, forcing me to buy a whole brand new one. That's exactly what we're talking about here.
Imagine having to spend $500 on a goddamn console that can brick at any moment, you know?
Out of control is far exceeding everything that is happening in today's day and age, and it is far greater than people wanted to realize. Hopefully, this flies back in Nintendo's face and there are some ramifications for them directly, because if this doesn't, then it will directly impact every consumer in the future moving forward and will be a greater ripple effect overall. And that is going to be a horrifying scene when you are going to go ahead and own nothing and at least pretend to be happy. Bing, bing, wahoo, I guess, right? But you know what? Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments section down below. Do you think Nintendo is going to go ahead and fall to this lawsuit? Do you think Brazil can even pull through? Can the EU even get involved as well? Honestly,
that's true. Don't you need to connect to Nintendo servers in order for you to activate those like key card things on those the little cartridge thing, like, because it's on their server, right? It's on the Nintendo server, right? And if they kick you out of the Nintendo server, right, because they brick your console, right, or they or whatnot, or they kick you off, you know, right? Can you even download those games?
You guys have to say. If you want to see more of this kind of content, though, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy content,
that's crazy though. Honestly, that's bro, if Brazil actually wins, bro, the meme for like you can just do a drawing or so of like Brazilian Miku literally slapping the shit out of Mario. That'd be pretty great, to be honest. It'd be pretty funny, honestly. But yeah, it's crazy. So you can't even fix the Nintendo Switch 2 without it getting bricked. That's absurd. That's absurd if that's actually true. If that actually is true, that is pretty absurd that you can't actually do that. Oh man. Hey man, if you guys like your game key cards, bro, hey man, you do whatever you want, man. That ain't none of my business. I'm just gonna sit here. I'm just gonna sit back here and just kind of laugh at you guys. You know, I'm just gonna laugh at the Nintendo fanboys. You know, I'm just kind of like, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty funny, though, in my personal opinion. Anyways, that's the end of the video. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy, jazzy stuff. But yeah. Damn. I'm hoping Brazil actually wins this one if Nintendo does not respond in the next 20 days or something like that. But yeah. Anyways, that's the end of the video. And, peace.